Hi, Nan.
Hi, guys. Look at this strong lady caucus here. I love it.
Well, we've got 5 Latinas or 6. We have an extra one joining us this evening from all across Ohio, came together to welcome you to this interview. And we're really so very happy you were able to join us for a short time this evening.
And I think I'm great. I'm really glad to see you all. And thanks for taking the time I heard it. You guys were very persistent in making this happen. So thank you for your persistence.
No problem.
Good evening.
Hi, good evening, John. How are you?
Good
I am
evening.
great.
Well, thank you so much for joining us this evening. My name is Laura Rodriguez-Carbone. I'm chair of the Ohio Democratic Party's Hispanic Latino Caucus. I'm joined here by LatinOHs, which is a great community organizing organization that worked really steadfastly for the Biden-Harris campaign. And so we're here tonight interviewing gubernatorial candidates, on behalf of the Hispanic community. So I want to thank you so much for joining us. And I want to introduce you to Lorena Mori-Mauri, who will be our moderator this evening.
Good evening. Thank you for joining us tonight. I'm from Cincinnati, Ohio. So the first question is going to be, will be asked by Guadalupe Velasquez from Columbus, Ohio.
Welcome, bienvenidos. Our first question is, why did you decide to run for governor of Ohio? And how do you feel that you would best represent the Latino community in terms of, being inclusive? And how also do you see the Latino community playing a role in that vision?
Yeah, so thank you. As you all may know, I was the mayor of Dayton for 8 years. And before that, I was on the Dayton City Commission for 8 years before. And what I've seen from the State House, frankly, is they have not been a partner with our local communities. And they're also the most corrupt in the country. The FBI says that, not me. They called Ohio the most corrupt state in the House in the country. And I think we need new leadership and a complete overhaul, and that Ohio deserves better than what they're getting out of our elected leaders in the governor's office and in the state. Frankly, I think we need to run diverse leadership like women. We've never run a woman as a nominee for governor. And it's actually one of the reasons why I think we underperform as a party, is that we don't have, we tend to run on the top of the ticket, moderate white guy after moderate white guy, and we get the same results, even though we expect something different. And I think actually running a different kind of campaign and different kind of candidate will give us an opportunity to win, much like they've done in Michigan, right? They actually overperform with a woman candidate, a woman governor, who they have a woman governor now. They do better with women and different people because they run a different kind of candidate. So when you think you're the best candidate for your party, you step up and go do it. And, I think we have a unique opportunity because of the corruption scandal. And I really want to focus on people who work. I think our party has a tendency to forget people who work. I think it's dangerous for our party. I'm proud to be endorsed by U.S. Senator Sherrod Brown, the best senator in the country, because he has this focus around workers and making sure that they get opportunities. And so I think that's really important. So that's why I'm running. I think the campaign's going great. We've gotten over 190 endorsees of elected officials, getting a lot of support all across the state from a real diverse group of elected officials too. Now, as mayor and as city commissioner, we declared Dayton an immigrant-friendly city. We were the first city in the country to be declared a welcoming city by Welcoming America. And my mantra has always been in Dayton that no matter who you live, who you love, where you come from, or what you believe, you are welcome in Dayton. And we've actually seen that opportunity has worked for our community. Until Trump stopped allowing folks to move into our cities, we actually saw a population bump because of folks being welcoming to immigrants and welcoming to different communities. And that's the same kind of attitude I would take across the state of Ohio. I am proud of that work and proud of Dayton's lead in that work and been a part of it as obviously and a champion of it as mayor. And I think that's something we need to work across the state, is to make sure that we're really legitimate about inclusivity, because it's so key to growth if we're really serious about the state growing. So that's a bit of the reason. I think I stayed within 3 minutes. That's why I'm running.
The first question will be asked by Ursula Barrera from Toledo, Lucas County, Ohio.
Hi, Mayor Cranley. Thank you for coming on our call today.
Thank you.
Why did you decide to run for governor of Ohio? And why do you feel you are the best candidate to represent the Hispanic, Latino, Latinx community? How do you see Latino community playing a role in that vision? Thank you.
I'm running for governor because Ohio needs a comeback. For decades, Ohio has been losing population, losing wages. In Cincinnati, I helped lead a comeback that wages are going up, the middle class is getting bigger, and we're growing twice as fast as the state of Ohio. I'm the only candidate in this race that has delivered economic results for the people that I represent, and I can do it for Ohio. The key elements of our success in Cincinnati have been prioritizing diversity and inclusion over a long period of time, police community reform, LGBTQ rights, and Hispanic and immigrant rights, and at the same time investing in middle-class wages, infrastructure, education, and clean energy. Teresa Federer, the state senator from Toledo, who's my running mate, longest serving Democratic woman in General Assembly, legislator, I'm an executive. We're the perfect team to get things done. I'm going to guarantee 30,000 jobs that pay $60,000 a year, legalize marijuana, tax it, put the taxes into those jobs, and I'm going to create a first ever form of basic income. In addition to all of that, as Lorena knows, in Cincinnati, not only became the first city to get 100% score from Human Rights Campaign and to lead police community reform, we were the first city to be, the only major city to be a sanctuary city. And we are also the first city to issue IDs to people regardless of immigration status. And it's an effort that I personally led. And so Latino and Hispanic issues have been something I've been working on my entire career. In fact, I was originally inspired to go into public service because of being in a play about Oscar Romero from El Salvador when I was in high school at St. Xavier High School, and inspired by his life story and the tragedy that the 6 Jesuits were killed in 1989 on the same day as our show, inspired me to want to go into public service.
The second question will be asked by Dr. Evelyn Rivera from Cleveland, Ohio.
Hi, Nan. So nice to meet you. I've been wanting to meet you, so I'm very glad to be on this call with you today. And my question from Cleveland is, could you please elaborate and talk a little bit about your involvement or work with the Latino community in Ohio?
Yeah, thank you for that question. As I mentioned, the work we've done with being an immigrant-friendly community has been led with a lot of the Latino community across our community, particularly Dayton. And just to tell you a story of how this started, we actually, I think I was like maybe a city commissioner for a few years. This was quite a long time ago. And we noticed that our police department were targeting Latinos in the work that they were doing, like about pulling people over. And we really got a new police chief, and we said, no, that's not appropriate. We're not going to do that, and stop doing it. And from that, we asked a community question about what we could do to be an inclusive community. And that's where we got this work about being an immigrant-friendly city. So I'm proud of that work. It came from the grassroots. It came from the voices of the community, and then we championed it. And actually, when we passed our immigrant-friendly work, only 3 people came to oppose, and they were from another state. They had driven into Dayton to try to block this. And then the next week it had 2 readings. All the people from Dayton came and talked about how important this was. And so a lot of times, if you give people the opportunity to do the right thing, they'll surprise you and do the right thing, right? I've also been a real partner with LULAC and always worked with LULAC on issues from everything like, championing this work for other communities to during the COVID pandemic, trying to really work to get vaccination rates up in our communities and being a champion there. But I've been really proud of the work that we've done with LULAC, and really honored that they decided to hold Dayton and our leadership up as a model, particularly in the work of inclusivity.
Hi, Mayor Cranley. Very nice to meet you. I'm excited to meet you and to be able to spend some time getting to know you a little more on this conversation today. This one goes right in line with what you just answered, actually. And I would like to see if you could elaborate a little bit more about your involvement, personal or in work, in the Latino community in your area or across the state. We'd like to know a little bit more of what work you've done with the Latino community.
It's been a lifelong journey. As I mentioned, my life changed when I did a play about Romero when I was in high school. And tragically, that play, which was 9 years after Romero was killed and 8 years after Gene Donovan and the nuns from Cleveland were killed, tragically, the show was on the same day as the 6 Jesuits who were killed at the Central American University, their housekeeper and a housekeeper's daughter. So that really sent me on a long journey of concern about these issues. I then went on a trip with the Jesuits to the Dominican Republic. In college at John Carroll University in Cleveland, I was student body president. And as student body president, I worked with the Humility of Mary nuns in Cleveland. And we started a migrant farm worker trip to Southern Florida, working with primarily Guatemalan and Mexican migrant farm workers. And we picked green peppers together and we prayed and worked together when I was in college. I've traveled extensively in Mexico, Latin America, Guatemala. I spent a summer in Guatemala, Dominican Republic multiple times, Peru multiple times, Ecuador multiple times, Argentina. My wife, who's from the Middle East, is Jordanian. And I even made her go with us on our honeymoon to Peru and to Ecuador. And so this has been a lifelong interest. As mayor, as I mentioned, I started an immigrant-friendly task force chaired by Latino Cincinnatian immigrant. And of course, I worked very closely with the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce my entire time as mayor. Worked on minority contracting improvement, worked on the municipal IDs, sanctuary city. And so this has been a critical and consistent theme throughout my career.
The third question will be asked by Laura Rodriguez Carbon from Lakewood, Ohio.
Thank you so much for joining us. It's wonderful to meet you. Just curious, do you have currently Hispanic and Latino staff working on your campaign? Were they working in your administration? And how do you plan to include Hispanics and Latinos in your administration should you be elected to governor?
Thanks for the question, Laura. We don't have any current Latino staff on the campaign, but that will definitely change as we continue to grow. It's a pretty, spry staff right now. And look, I've been really committed to diversity on the staff, and we'll continue to grow that as we grow. A third of our staff right now are African American, and nearly half are women. And on our consulting team, which is actually where a lot of the money is spent on campaigns, half are people of color, and each firm has at least one person from Ohio with Ohio experience. Because we've also seen a lot of these consultants come in and they don't know anything about Ohio. And so we wanted to make sure that happened as well, and that diversity. And I'm really proud of that, because most of these consulting firms, frankly, have been really, really white and really, really male. So I'm proud of that work. We'll continue to grow our Latino folks. Our TV firm is the only Latino firm in the country, Kozar. So that is part of our team as well. So we do have that work for us. And Dan Senna is actually based, he was actually from New Mexico, and then an interesting Kozar is from Ohio. So we have the people that are doing our TV ads are Hispanic. So we're excited about that. And then the other thing I'll say, as far as when I was mayor, we did have Latinos on the staff, particularly to drive the immigrant-friendly work, right? And then we also hired refugees, right? Because we wanted the folks that were in the African communities as well. So it was about not just, we've checked the box on this, but making sure there was real legitimate relationships in the community that could really be connected across our city. And I'm proud of that work too. So I've done that in the past, and we'll continue to grow the diversity on our team as well.
Answer. I just wanted to know, do you currently have Hispanics and Latinos on staff working in your campaign, or did you have them as part of your administration in Cincinnati? And do you have plans to include them in your administration or state government moving forward? And what are those plans?
Yeah, yes, in my administration as mayor, obviously we had 6,000 employees. And so our administration at all levels reflected the diversity of our city. We have a very small campaign staff right now. I'm embarrassed to say we don't have a Latino on the staff at the exact moment, but I promise you we will have a what?
I said, my cousin's wife wants to.
Oh, okay. My wife's chiming in. So we will. But I promise you that the leadership of my team, which in Cincinnati was incredibly diverse racially and gender, in the mayor's office, as well as police chief, fire chief, waterworks chief, parks, recreation, city manager, we will reflect the diversity of the state in our cabinet, our leadership, and in our procurement of contracts for city contracts. And we increase contracts with Latino businesses in Cincinnati, and we'll do the same in the state. As I mentioned earlier, a lot of our appointments and leadership opportunities, including this massive immigration task force, was led by a Latino Cincinnatian. And we've been very conscientious in appointments of boards, and not just boards related to immigration issues, but everything from Citizens Complaint Authority to the Port Authority to some of the Art Museum Board. So things that are mainstream, as well as obviously particular interest of the Hispanic community. We have been very aggressive in making appointments that reflect the diversity of our city.
The fourth question will be asked by Vilbury Perez. She's a PhD candidate from Westlake, Ohio.
Welcome, bienvenida, Nan, and thank you for sharing this time with us tonight. What are the fundamental improvement reforms needed to strengthen Ohio's educational system at the state level? And do you support increased funding for bilingual and special education for our children who are not native English speakers? And how do you plan to increase the strength resources for bilingual families?
Yeah, so every Ohioan deserves and needs a good quality education, everyone. But for too long, this simply just has not been the case. Years of Republicans' cuts to education spending has left us in a situation where local communities have had to raise property taxes to pay for better schools. And it's the responsibility of the state to provide a quality public education in all communities, regardless of their income. And as governor, I'm going to make that a priority. This is a place where the state legislature actually took a good small step with passing of the Patterson Cup, or what we call the Sweeney Cup bill now. But then they immediately then tried to privatize our education system with charter schools and vouchers. And look, Dayton has been on ground zero on the charter issue. 20 years ago, John Husted decided to make Dayton's children an experiment and open charters all across our city with no regulations. A third of our students in Dayton actually go to charter schools. There's really only 2 good charter schools. The rest of them are worse quality than the public schools. And you cannot build back the public education when you suck the money and privatize it, right? And we've seen that in Dayton. Dayton actually had the most children in private school in charter schools per capita of any city in the country until Hurricane Katrina happened in New Orleans, and New Orleans surpassed us. And it has been devastating. The kids do not get as educated as well. And it's also affected our communities. Like, I actually think, I like to pretend that the reason why people decide what city they're going to live to is like they go to see who the mayor is. I don't think that's true. They typically go to see what the public education site is like. And so we need to have the strong investment. I think the other thing is that we need to make sure that there's local control in this. This is a conservative idea that government closest to the people knows what they need, and that helps them provide, the state should provide the funding, and then they should see where it's best to be served, right? And I think that's really important since our communities are so diverse. And then I'm also a big proponent, and this is in our jobs plan, of providing high quality preschool to every 3- and 4-year-old. We did that in Dayton, and it's been great, very successful. Fancy cities like Santa Barbara now come to Dayton to figure out how to do preschool. Again, because it provides a model where parents can decide what kind of schools they want them to go to, and really was inclusive in the way that we administered preschool, which is very different. And then we also made sure, when you talk about particularly ESL and just education overall in Dayton, when the ARPA funding happened for the city and schools, we put more teachers in the school system, in like particularly our K-4, because we knew they had the biggest gap after COVID. So we put more support in those places. And so I think that's really important, is where we see gaps, we need to be able to be flexible and make sure that the community can provide that. And we were able to do that in Dayton with some of the ARPA funding. So look, the fact is the governor has a ton of power when it comes to schools. And I plan to use that power to invest in our kids, all of our kids, with all of their needs, to give them the opportunity to succeed. And that includes obviously ESL and other things, but making sure that we don't have folks that are short-staffed in that work. I can speak a little personally. My neighbor is an ESL student, ESL teacher actually in Troy, Ohio. So she actually teaches, Japanese students, right? Because that's the need in Troy, Ohio, because of the Honda plant. So, this is much bigger and a bigger issue. And so some of the tales she's told me during COVID. I have another friend that's an ESL teacher in West Carrollton, and she's told me about her challenges. Every community has a very different need, and we need to make sure that the communities have the funding to be able to put those needs in, but then also the flexibility to help respond with what the community and the children need. So I hope that answers your question.
Good evening, Mayor Cranley, and thank you for sharing your time with us tonight. The question is, what are the fundamental improvements, reforms needed to strengthen Ohio's educational system at the state level? And do you support increased funding for bilingual and special education for children who are not native English speakers? How do you plan to increase and strengthen resources for bilingual families?
Yes, to all of that. A couple things. Ohio has never had a fair, constitutionally equitable funding system for K-12 education. 25 years ago, last week, the Ohio Supreme Court ruled that the funding for K-12 education in Ohio was unfair and unjust. Teresa Feder and I have promised that we will fully fund a constitutional K-12 system within the first 100 days of our administration. And inside of that will be embedded bilingual education as appropriate. Simultaneously, we will dramatically improve and increase the number of community college opportunities of reduced tuition or free tuition for our junior colleges and community colleges, which are gateways to middle classes in most communities. And last but not least, we will also radically upgrade the research and development for our graduate level education at our state universities and major hospitals, which are our primary magnet for bringing immigrants to Ohio, to our universities, to partake in the great opportunities that are there. And what I believe is the most important thing that the state can do to get Ohio growing again is to attract the greatest minds from around the world and to keep our own minds, as we don't lose our kids to moving away to other states. But Ohio needs more people to grow at or above the rate of the national growth rate. Right now, it's below the national growth rate, and immigration is the only way we're going to do that. And the most likely way to attract, to increase the number of immigrants to Ohio is to dramatically increase educational opportunities at our graduate universities.
The fifth and last question will be asked by Lupe Williams from Wayne County, Ohio.
Please allow me to ask you a question, Nan. Why should we Latinos and Hispanic and Latinx vote for you? Why?
Well, look, I mean, we know, of course, that while the Latino community has unique policy concerns, every issue is really a Latino issue. Latino Ohioans are an important part of the state, and we cannot succeed as a community unless we're all succeeding. That has been our goal in Dayton, and that's going to be my goal as governor. Now, I'm committed to fighting for a more equitable Ohio, one where everyone and every community has the tools they need to succeed and give their kids a better life. But look, I need your help to get there. right? We know that what's been happening over the course of 2 decades at the state is there's been only one community, one metro that has been getting wealthier and doing well. And the answer, and I love Columbus, but the answer for our state cannot be, if you want to stay in Ohio, just move to Columbus for our kids and grandkids. We have to have opportunities in every single metro. And as somebody who's been the mayor of Dayton, I feel that very, very intensely, right? I live and come from a great, gritty, resilient city, but it's not getting the support and help it deserves from the state, because the state has decided to cut taxes on the wealthy and big corporations. And so that means that working class people, who are many Latinos, right, are paying and footing the bill. And that's not fair. I just want folks to pay their fair share, and that way we can get the stuff that we need in our communities. Now, look, my message is really simple. I want folks' pay to go up, their bills to go down, and their government to work for them. So that means providing a fair wage, but increasing the minimum wage to $15 an hour.
Yes.
Making sure we're investing in new technologies like renewable energy. So we make the solar panels and wind turbines in Ohio, because Michigan and Pennsylvania are eating our lunch. And making sure that we are investing in small businesses, which are typically owned by women and minorities, right? That's how entrepreneurship has really grown. And if we support small businesses, all of our communities will thrive, right? Because that's how we grow the entrepreneurship future of all our communities, which is really, I think, important to the Latino community too. But at the same time, we know we got to get bills down, right? Which means, making sure that our utility bill isn't like filled with corrupt charges, making sure we invest in childcare, because we've seen so many women opt out of the workforce because, no offense to the guys, but women still do 70% of the work in child caring at home. And childcare is either scarce or too expensive for families to use it. And the state needs to invest in that. And that would make a great difference for all women across the state and their families. And then finally, we've got to get the state to have the wealthy and corporations pay their fair share, so we don't keep on having higher property taxes, right? So I think this is pretty much common sense. Pay go up, bills go down, but we can't have it because we have the most corrupt state house in the country, right? And so, we've got to clean up the corruption that's been rampant under Governor DeWine. I have a plan for that. It's the first plan I announced at nanwhaley.com/ethics. And I hope, we can count on the same old guys getting this done, right? So that's really why I hope you'll consider voting for me. It is time we do something different if we want to win, and if we want a different kind of government that actually cares about our communities.
Well,
Oh, yeah.
Nan, I want to thank you. That concludes our questions for this evening. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Mr. Cranley. The fifth and the last question will be asked by Lupe William from Wayne County, Ohio.
That. Allow me to ask you a question. Why should we, Latinos and Hispanics and Latinx, vote for you? Why?
Because I'm the only candidate in this race that has delivered for the people I've served and can deliver for Ohio. So Ohio needs to grow, and the average wage in Ohio needs to go up. My record and the record of Cincinnati is that my people's income are growing faster than Ohio. My poverty is going down faster than Ohio's poverty is going down. Our shootings, our crime is going down when most of America's cities are going up. And we have a proven track record of delivering on improving opportunities for minority in Cincinnati. For example, the number of contracts for Black-owned businesses went from 2% to 17%. So I've delivered where others have failed. The fact is that neither Mike DeWine and the Republicans have delivered for the people at the level that will guarantee a rise of income and middle-class opportunities for our kids and grandkids. Similarly, Dayton has underperformed the Ohio economy. And so if we're going to beat Mike DeWine and the Republicans in November, in my opinion, we need a candidate who has a better record than Ohio, not a worse record than Ohio. But specifically, Teresa and I have a plan to grow Ohio, which is upgrading education, K through 12, community college, research and development, research and graduate level education, guaranteeing 30,000 jobs every year that pay a minimum of $60,000 a year to build high-speed Wi-Fi for the whole state, clean water, clean energy, fix our roads and our bridges. Legalize marijuana, tax it, and putting the taxes into those jobs, and creating a basic income of $500 per year per family to help with inflation, gas, and food. This is a unique agenda. It's different. It can win Democrats and Republicans, and it will grow the state and expand the size of our state's middle class.
Thank you.
Well, Mayor Cranley, I want to thank you for joining us this evening. Thank you for your very direct answers. We appreciate the time you've taken to really think about some of the solutions that you think would help to advance our state. And yeah, we're just really happy to have you.
It's been a pleasure. I'll come back anytime.